What if I told you that one middle-class boy, sitting alone in his small bedroom with nothing but a second-hand computer and an impossible dream, would one day become one of the most famous and generous people on the planet? What if I told you that the boy who once uploaded videos nobody watched would grow up to change the way millions see YouTube forever? Hey everyone, welcome back to Swift Tale, where we bring you the real stories behind extraordinary people. If you're visiting for the first time, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, because today's story isn't just about fame, it's about belief, failure, obsession, and transformation. It's about how one young man named Jimmy Donaldson, better known as MrBeast, turned his ordinary life into something the world had never seen before. Jimmy didn't come from wealth. He wasn't born into success. He grew up in a small town in North Carolina, surrounded by the quiet life of an average middle-class family. No private tutors, no Hollywood connections, no big sponsors. Just a boy who loved YouTube, who dreamed of making people smile, and who was willing to do whatever it took to make it happen. But little did anyone know, his curiosity would soon evolve into something much, much greater. In this video, we'll dive deep into the true journey, from those early days of uploading grainy Minecraft videos, to the late nights studying YouTube algorithms, to the wild stunts and million-dollar challenges that made him the most-watched creator on the planet. We'll uncover the struggles nobody saw, the sleepless nights, the self-doubt, and the obsession that fueled every click, every frame, and every idea. Because here's the real question: how does an ordinary kid with zero fame and no money become MrBeast? What makes someone push through failure again and again, even when the world doesn't care? By the end of this story, you'll see that success isn't about luck, it's about purpose. You'll see how a middle-class boy turned his passion into an empire, not by chasing wealth, but by giving it away. So grab a seat, because what you're about to hear is more than a YouTube success story. It's a life lesson about resilience, creativity, and heart. Welcome to Swift Tale, and this is how a middle-class boy became MrBeast. Before the world knew the name MrBeast, there was just Jimmy, a quiet boy from Greenville, North Carolina. He wasn't the loudest in the classroom. He wasn't the most athletic or the most popular. In fact, Jimmy Donaldson often felt invisible. His teachers saw him as polite but distracted, and his classmates barely noticed the kid who sat near the window, sketching ideas on scrap paper or daydreaming about something beyond his small town. Jimmy grew up in a modest middle-class household. His mother, hardworking and strict but loving, always reminded him to focus on school. His brother CJ, full of energy and fun, often teased Jimmy for spending too much time on the computer. Money wasn't always easy, bills had to be paid, and luxuries were rare. There were no fancy vacations, no expensive gadgets, no private tutors, just ordinary days filled with ordinary struggles. But even in that simplicity, there was something different about Jimmy. He wasn't interested in what most kids his age were doing. While others talked about sports, games, or parties, Jimmy was fascinated by one thing: YouTube. It wasn't the fame that drew him in. It was the mystery. How did people make videos that millions wanted to watch? Why did some channels explode overnight while others faded into nothing? At just 13 years old, Jimmy started experimenting. He didn't have the best camera or microphone, just an old computer that could barely handle editing software. His early videos were awkward, low quality, and barely edited. Sometimes he'd get just a few views, mostly from friends or random clicks. But instead of giving up, Jimmy became obsessed with figuring out what made YouTube tick. He'd spend nights watching tutorials, analyzing viral videos frame by frame, studying titles, thumbnails, and comments. His friends thought he was wasting his time. Even his family worried. "Jimmy, you need to think about your future," his mom would say. But deep down, Jimmy knew that he was already thinking about it, just in a way nobody else could understand. Greenville might have been a small town, but Jimmy's imagination was larger than life. When most kids dreamed of becoming athletes or rock stars, he dreamed of becoming a YouTuber. Not just any YouTuber, but the greatest one who ever lived. He didn't have money, he didn't have equipment, but he had something that can't be bought: vision. And even though the world hadn't noticed him yet, Jimmy Donaldson was already laying the foundation for something that would one day shake the internet. This was the start of a journey no one expected, a journey born from boredom, curiosity, and relentless passion. A middle-class boy sitting behind a flickering screen, whispering to himself, "One day I'll make it." Music fades slightly, the tone shifts from nostalgic to determined. Because in that small room, surrounded by the quiet hum of his old computer, Jimmy wasn't just watching YouTube. He was studying the future, and without realizing it, he was becoming it. Every great story has a moment when curiosity turns into obsession, and for Jimmy Donaldson, that moment came when he realized something powerful. YouTube wasn't just entertainment, it was a puzzle waiting to be solved. By now, Jimmy wasn't just watching videos, he was dissecting them. While others scrolled mindlessly through viral clips, Jimmy paused, rewound, and replayed every second, trying to understand why one video blew up while another disappeared into the void. He began keeping a small notebook beside his computer, filled with scribbles like "good title equals curiosity," "first 10 seconds must hook," "big numbers equals big clicks." Most kids his age were writing homework essays. Jimmy was reverse engineering virality. Every day after school, he'd lock himself in his room for hours, watching creators like PewDiePie, Casey Neistat, and Smosh, studying everything, their packing, humor, energy, and camera angles. He didn't just want to copy them, he wanted to understand them. "What are they doing that I'm not?" he'd whisper to himself, eyes glued to the screen. Jimmy began experimenting, uploading random videos under different titles, changing thumbnails, testing descriptions. He'd make notes on which ones performed better, even when his audience was barely double digits. To him, every failure was just more data. Sound of a clock ticking, long nights, one after another. At this point, his friends were out having fun, playing games, or going to parties. But Jimmy, he stayed up until 3 or 4 a.m., his eyes red from the glow of the screen, whispering, "Just one more video, one more test." His mother worried, "Jimmy, you need sleep. You can't spend all your time doing this." But he couldn't stop, because something inside him was starting to click. He was beginning to see YouTube differently, not as luck or chance, but as a living system with patterns that could be understood. Jimmy once said, "I woke up one day and just decided I was going to figure out how YouTube worked, no matter what." And that's exactly what he did. For years, while others were chasing views, Jimmy was chasing understanding. He watched analytics like a scientist, retention graphs, click-through rates, audience drop-offs. Every tiny change became a clue. He'd analyze the way titles with 100,000 or 1 million performed better because big numbers created awe. He learned that fast packing kept people watching, and a strong hook kept them from clicking away. Slowly, his brain began to think like an algorithm. He could predict when people would get bored, when they'd laugh, when they'd stay. And while he still wasn't famous, not even close, Jimmy had something far more powerful than fame: knowledge. Music shifts to a light pulse, tension building. There were times he thought about quitting. After all, years of work had brought him little recognition. But each time he looked at his small notebook, now filled with notes, graphs, and ideas, he remembered his goal: not to be the biggest YouTuber overnight, but to become the best student YouTube ever had. In those quiet nights of study, Jimmy unknowingly trained the mindset that would later define MrBeast: precision, patience, and purpose. He wasn't chasing luck. He was building a formula that one day the entire internet would notice. And soon, that formula was about to be tested, not in theory, but in action. Music builds suspense. Because when Jimmy finally decided to put all his knowledge to the test, he would create one of the strangest, most unbelievable videos YouTube had ever seen, and it would change his life forever. Every dreamer faces that moment when passion collides with reality, when the dream stops being exciting and starts feeling impossible. For Jimmy Donaldson, that moment stretched into years. By his late teens, Jimmy's obsession with YouTube had consumed everything: his time, his energy, his focus. But it wasn't paying off. His videos were better now, sharper, smarter, more creative, yet the numbers on his screen still mocked him. A few hundred views, a handful of comments, and barely any subscribers. He was improving, but no one seemed to care. The world doesn't always reward effort immediately, and Jimmy was learning that the hard way. His mother, supportive but worried, would peek into his room at midnight and see her son hunched over his computer again. "Jimmy," she'd sigh, "you can't live your whole life chasing a dream that doesn't pay the bills." But Jimmy would just smile weakly and say, "Mom, I'm close. I just need to figure it out." The camera zooms in on his tired eyes, staring at analytics on the screen. Money was tight. He didn't have a steady job, and YouTube wasn't making a cent. His family couldn't always understand why he was so determined to make videos for free. His friends drifted away. Some moved on to college, others to regular jobs. But Jimmy stayed right there, in that same small room, editing, uploading, failing, and trying again. There were days when he questioned everything. "Maybe they're right," he'd whisper to himself. "Maybe this isn't going to work." But every time that doubt crept in, he'd open one of his old notebooks, filled with ideas, strategies, and reminders, and tell himself, "No, this is my purpose." His computer would crash mid-edit. His internet connection would fail during uploads. Sometimes he'd lose entire projects because of one glitch, yet he never stopped. He'd sit there, eyes heavy from sleepless nights, and start over from scratch. Jimmy wasn't just broke financially, he was emotionally exhausted. But something inside him refused to give up. That stubborn spark that had started years ago when he first discovered YouTube was still burning, dim, but alive. He began uploading videos that tested the limits of patience and endurance. He filmed himself saying Logan Paul 100,000 times or watching Jake Paul's music video on repeat for hours. They weren't glamorous, but they were unique. He realized that sometimes success doesn't come from perfection, it comes from persistence. Music shifts, slow, rhythmic, hopeful undertone. Each of these experiments pushed him closer to his breakthrough. He was learning how far he could push himself mentally and physically. And though no one saw it at the time, this was the stage that would define who MrBeast would become. While most people quit when things get hard, Jimmy did the opposite. He leaned into the pain. He used exhaustion as fuel. Every failure was just another step toward understanding what worked and what didn't. By this point, Jimmy had no backup plan, no safety net. He wasn't a college student anymore. He had chosen YouTube completely, 100%. No job, no side hustle, no plan B, just belief, just faith. And when you pour everything into a dream, the universe has only two options: break you or bless you. For Jimmy, the blessing was about to arrive. It wouldn't come in money or fame, not yet. It would come in the form of a single, crazy idea. An idea so strange, so simple, and yet so genius that it would finally catch the internet's attention. Music builds suspense, slow zoom on Jimmy's face, whispering to himself, "What if I count to 100,000? That question, that one insane thought, would become the turning point of his entire life. Sometimes, all it takes is one crazy idea to change everything. After years of sleepless nights, endless experiments, and heartbreak, Jimmy Donaldson, the world would soon know him as MrBeast, decided to do something no one had ever done before. Not because it made sense, but because it didn't. He sat in front of his old camera one morning, eyes tired but determined. "I'm going to count to 100,000, he said. No script, no fancy effects, no team, just pure determination. Everyone who heard about it laughed. "That's ridiculous," some said. "No one will watch that." But Jimmy wasn't doing it for views anymore. He was doing it to prove something, that consistency, patience, and human will could become content. Music softens, the sound of Jimmy's voice echoing in a small room. 25,000, 26,000. Hours turned into days. His voice grew hoarse, his eyes red, his posture slumped. He'd stop only to eat or rest for a few minutes before starting again. His family thought he was losing his mind. But in that room, Jimmy wasn't losing it, he was finding it. He was finding the edge that most creators never reach. When he finally hit 100,000, after more than 40 straight hours, his voice cracked and a weak smile crossed his face. He didn't even know if the video would upload properly, but when it did, something incredible happened. People watched. They didn't just watch, they couldn't look away. The absurdity, the endurance, the realness of it, it was mesmerizing. It wasn't just a stunt, it was an experience. It showed something powerful, that Jimmy wasn't just another YouTuber chasing trends, he was building his own. Music swells as his subscriber count begins to rise on screen. For the first time, his channel exploded. Views shot up, subscribers poured in, and suddenly, Jimmy's years of failure started to make sense. This wasn't luck. This was the result of 1,000 unseen nights of practice. That one video changed everything. People began calling him the guy who does crazy stuff on YouTube. But those who watched closely saw more than just challenges, they saw commitment. They saw someone who treated YouTube like an art form, someone who could take something as simple as counting numbers and turn it into a worldwide phenomenon. Jimmy didn't stop there. He pushed even harder, reading the entire dictionary, watching paint dry, saying PewDiePie 100,000 times. Each challenge became more ridiculous than the last, but each one taught him something. People love authentic effort. They love to watch someone push human limits. The money was still small, but the momentum was massive. Brands began to notice. Collaborations became possible. For the first time, Jimmy could afford better equipment, a better setup, and soon a small team of friends who believed in him. Music transitions to hopeful and uplifting. Jimmy was no longer the lonely kid behind a flickering screen. He was becoming a creator with a vision, someone who was changing what content meant. His endurance videos weren't just stunts, they were proof that hard work could be entertainment. And deep down, he realized something important. People didn't just want to watch him do things, they wanted to watch him mean something. That realization would soon lead to a new kind of video, one that would define his entire career. A video where he didn't just test his own limits, but began to change the lives of others. Music fades, replaced by soft ambient tones, calm before the storm. Because after counting to 100,000, Jimmy didn't just become a YouTuber people recognized, he became a symbol of persistence. And that persistence was about to take him from a small-town dreamer to a global force of kindness, creativity, and courage. The boy who counted to 100,000 was now counting his way towards something far greater: impact. Success doesn't happen overnight. It builds quietly through repetition, failure, and moments no one else sees. For Jimmy Donaldson, that quiet grind had finally paid off. The boy who once uploaded videos no one watched was now becoming something greater, not just a creator, but a phenomenon. After the viral success of counting to 100,000, Jimmy realized something crucial. People weren't just watching him because of what he did, they were watching because of why he did it. His relentless effort, his ridiculous challenges, his willingness to go further than anyone else, all of it reflected something audiences craved: authentic passion. And so MrBeast was born. Music picks up, slow beats of determination, visuals of Jimmy filming challenges with friends. With his new identity, Jimmy didn't slow down. He doubled his efforts. He gathered a small circle of loyal friends, Chris, Chandler, Carl, and others, who believed in his mission and shared his chaotic humor. Together, they brainstormed ideas that seemed impossible. Each video was bigger, crazier, and more unpredictable than the last. He went from saying words thousands of times to giving away thousands of dollars. At first, he gave money to random Twitch streamers and Uber drivers. People thought it was a stunt, but Jimmy meant every dollar. He said, "If I ever get money, I'll just use it to help people and make cool videos doing it." It was the start of a revolution. When he handed a homeless man $10,000, that video changed everything. People cried watching it. It wasn't about views anymore, it was about impact. It proved that generosity could go viral. And with each upload, MrBeast became more than a YouTuber, he became a storyteller of kindness. Music swells, shots of people's reactions, smiles, tears, laughter. But behind the fun, there was still strategy. Jimmy wasn't guessing anymore, he knew exactly what he was doing. Every challenge had a hook, every giveaway had a purpose, every video carried meaning. He reinvested every penny he made back into his next video. If he earned $10,000, he'd spend $12,000. If he got $100,000, he'd pour it all into creating something even bigger. It wasn't about profit, it was about progress. He once said, I don't care about buying a mansion or a car. I just want to make the best videos possible. And that mindset separated him from the rest. While others chased fame, he chased improvement. While others built wealth, he built influence. Soon, the challenges evolved, from last to leave competitions to surviving 24 hours in the desert and building a house with $1 versus $1 million. The scale was unimaginable. His videos looked more like blockbuster movies than YouTube clips. The production grew, the audience exploded, and sponsors lined up just to be part of his creative madness. But even as his numbers soared into the millions, Jimmy stayed grounded. He never forgot that he started with nothing, that he was once just a boy from Greenville who dreamed too big. That humility became the heart of MrBeast's empire. Music softens, camera pans over a quiet set after filming. Late at night, when the cameras turned off, Jimmy would still stay awake with his notebook, writing new ideas, new challenges, new ways to give back. He didn't want to be remembered as just another influencer. He wanted to redefine what influence meant. And little by little, he was doing exactly that. People didn't just watch MrBeast videos, they felt them. They laughed, they cried, they got inspired. His content wasn't passive entertainment, it was emotional connection. He gave people something rare in a digital world: hope. The rise of MrBeast wasn't luck or timing. It was the result of an unshakable vision, a heart that refused to quit, and a mind that never stopped learning. Music builds to a powerful crescendo. By now, Jimmy had millions of subscribers, global recognition, and a growing team who shared his purpose. But to him, this was still just the beginning. He didn't want to just make content. He wanted to build something that mattered. And that's when the boy who once struggled to buy a better microphone began thinking like a builder, an innovator, a leader. He wasn't just a YouTuber anymore. He was an architect of change, and his empire was just starting to rise. Music fades gently as the screen transitions, a quiet moment of reflection. Because what started as one boy's dream to understand YouTube was becoming something far greater, a mission to change the world through creativity, generosity, and relentless belief. The middle-class boy had become MrBeast. But the world hadn't seen anything yet. By now, Jimmy Donaldson, the world's MrBeast, wasn't just a YouTuber anymore. He was a full-fledged visionary. The boy who once filmed videos in his bedroom had grown into a man running a media empire, a brand, and a mission. But what set him apart wasn't just his content, it was how he thought. While most creators were chasing short-term fame, Jimmy was building a long-term legacy. He didn't just want to make viral videos, he wanted to build systems that could sustain them. And that's where the business mind of MrBeast began to shine. Cut to visuals of offices, editors, brainstorming sessions, massive production sets. Jimmy realized early that YouTube wasn't just entertainment, it was an economy. Every view, every click, every reaction could become part of a self-sustaining cycle: create, give, grow, repeat. So he started treating his channel like a company. He built a team, not just friends filming challenges, but editors, managers, writers, logistics experts, and creative directors. He knew that to scale generosity, he needed structure. Every new idea required planning, budgeting, and execution at a professional level. MrBeast wasn't running a YouTube channel anymore. He was running an organization. Music deepens, sense of focus, power, and innovation. His philosophy was simple yet revolutionary: reinvest everything. Every time he earned money from a video, sponsorship, or brand deal, he'd pour it right back into the next one, bigger, bolder, and better. While most creators bought cars and mansions, Jimmy bought cameras, prizes, and production space. He once said, "If I make $3 million, I'll spend $2.9 million on the next video." That strategy transformed him from a YouTuber into a businessman. Soon, his creative empire expanded. He launched MrBeast Gaming, MrBeast Shorts, Beast Reacts, and more, each channel run like its own company division. He wasn't just building views, he was building verticals. But Jimmy's ambitions didn't stop at YouTube. He had a vision: to turn his brand into something people could taste, touch, and experience. Music shifts, energetic, upbeat tone. That's when he launched MrBeast Burger, a virtual restaurant brand that spread across the United States almost overnight. With over 1,000 locations, fans could order a MrBeast burger through delivery apps and feel part of his world. It wasn't just food, it was a movement. Millions of fans supported it not because of marketing, but because they believed in him. And then came Feastables, his own chocolate and snack company. But this wasn't just about selling candy. Every bar was tied to his philosophy: clean ingredients, fun challenges, and giving back. The moment he launched Feastables, shelves sold out across the country. Kids and adults alike weren't just buying chocolate, they were buying a piece of MrBeast's dream. Music softens, inspirational undertone. Behind the bright colors and fun challenges was a man who spent countless nights studying numbers, logistics, and impact. Jimmy understood that being a creator in the 21st century meant being an entrepreneur. His videos were no longer just entertainment. They were marketing engines for real-world businesses that employed hundreds. His secret: he never lost sight of purpose. Every new project had to serve his mission to entertain, inspire, and improve lives. Whether through burgers, candy bars, or giveaways, the message stayed the same: do good, be kind, dream big. Camera pans across massive production warehouse, staff laughing, filming, editing, planning. MrBeast built his empire not through greed, but through giving. He proved that generosity and business could coexist, that kindness could be profitable if done with heart. But perhaps what's most impressive is how he kept his integrity intact. No matter how big his brand became, he refused to sell out. He turned down huge deals that didn't align with his values. To him, authenticity was everything. Music rises, deep and powerful. By now, Jimmy wasn't just influencing content creation, he was influencing the future of online business. Other creators began following his model: reinvest, innovate, and lead with purpose. He built a blueprint for the next generation. And yet, despite all the success, the companies, the views, the millions of fans, Jimmy never stopped saying the same thing: I just want to make the best videos possible. Because for him, business was never about money. It was about freedom. The freedom to create without limits, to dream without fear, and to give without hesitation. Music fades gently, tone shifts to anticipation. But what truly set him apart wasn't how he built wealth, it was how he used it. Because soon, Jimmy would step into his most powerful role yet, not as an entertainer or entrepreneur, but as a global force for good. And that moment, the moment the world saw his heart in full, would turn MrBeast from a creator into a legend. Sometimes, greatness isn't measured by how much you earn, but by how much you give. And for Jimmy Donaldson, the man the world calls MrBeast, giving wasn't a marketing trick or a viral formula. It was his life's mission. From the very beginning, Jimmy believed that kindness could be entertaining, that compassion could go viral. And as his influence grew, so did his ability to make a difference. What started as giving away $10,000 to a homeless man soon became a movement that would touch millions of lives around the globe. Cut to scenes of old videos, Jimmy handing envelopes of cash, strangers crying, laughter echoing. At first, people thought it was crazy. Who gives away money for free? They ask. But Jimmy wasn't just giving money, he was giving hope. Each challenge, each act of generosity reminded the world that there were still people out there who cared.